Hello everybody! So today we're going to be making this cute little shoulder bag here, and I made this with the loops and threads impeccable yarn, but for this tutorial I'll actually be using the Lion Brand Landscapes yarn. You can use basically any acrylic yarn that's a medium weight, whatever you prefer, but I would definitely recommend acrylic just because it's going to stand the test of time a bit better than any kind of wool blend. So this yarn actually recommends a 6.5 millimeter hook. I'm actually going to be using a 5 millimeter today just so we get a bit of a tighter gauge, so it's a bit more sturdy in the final product. So the basic construction of this is going to be crocheting this in one full panel and then folding it in half and single crocheting up the sides. We are going to add this little detail here with double crochet, but the rest is going to be single crochet, and then we have a single crochet strap that goes from one side to the other, and we'll add these cute little tassels as well. So for our foundation chain, we're going to chain 21 stitches. So you're just going to go ahead and start with a slip knot. Alright, I have my 21 and I'm just going to go ahead and chain 2 more for the turning chain. And you're going to crochet into the second loop from the hook and go ahead and single crochet all the way across. Alright, now that I have that finished, it's a good time to count your stitches to make sure you still have 21, to make sure you didn't skip any or accidentally add any along the way. Alright, so I do have 21 stitches, and you want to keep that stitch count throughout, so it can be a good idea to count each row as you go, or just sort of, you know, maybe keep a stitch marker at either end if you're especially new, just to ensure that you keep kind of those nice crisp borders. But then you are going to go ahead and chain 1 at the end there, turn your work, and go ahead and single crochet 3 more rows, and I'll meet you back here. Alright, I do have my 4 rows now. And I do want to note that you can make any size bag that you would like. This one's going to be, you know, a nice little shoulder bag, probably hold a wallet, keys, and your phone. But you can definitely make a much more sizable bag if you would like. Just the key element to that is to have an odd stitch count. And you'll see on this next step that we do that just to maintain some of the detail work, the little eyelets that we're going to be adding to this next row. So now that we have our 4 rows, we're going to go ahead and add that detail work. So you're just going to start by chaining 2, and this is going to count as one of your double crochets in the detail work, and you're going to go ahead and double crochet into that next stitch. So you're going to skip this first stitch and go into that next stitch because this chain 2 does count as a stitch, as that stitch. So we have 2 double crochets here. We're going to go ahead and chain 1, and then you're going to skip this next stitch and double crochet into that second stitch. So as you can see, we've made 1 little eyelet here, and you're going to go ahead and chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet into that next stitch. And you're just going to be doing this all the way across to create the detail work until the very end. So chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet into that next stitch. Alright, now we've got to the very end. We have 1 stitch left, and you're gonna double crochet into that stitch. So as you can see, we have little eyelets in the middle, but at the end we have two pairing double crochets in either of the last two stitches. So the reason we have this is because we are going to end up single crocheting up the sides, and that is going to go ahead and cover these last stitches. So it's just to keep that nice little eyelet design prominent within the work itself. And you are going to chain one, turn your work, and go ahead and single crochet all the way to the end of this row as well. And make sure that you're also single crocheting into those chain stitches. They can be a little bit tricky to get into, might be a little bit tighter than your other stitches, but go ahead and make sure to get those as well. Alright, so we can see the top of our bag forming here, and I'm really happy with these colors so far. So what you're going to go ahead and do is you're going to repeat with a single crochet row for 39 more rows. So you should have 40 single crochets total from the little design eyelid row. So I'll go ahead and meet you back here. One way that you can kind of keep track of the numbers is to use stitch markers, maybe every 20 or every 10. Use a stitch marker so you don't have to keep counting those rows. I've reached my 40 rows here, and I just have a stitch marker on the 20th and the 30th. And I got these super cute little stitch markers just in the charm section at Michael's. I've got a little globe here and a little caravan, super cute. But anyway, so we're to 40. So you can go ahead and at this point sort of take out your needle, pull up the loop, and kind of measure your project. So you're going to fold it in half up to those eyelets, and this is going to be the depth of your bag. If you want it to be deeper, you can go ahead and do a few more rows, and you're just going to fold it over to kind of measure where it'll be at, and then we'll go ahead and repeat those eyelets and that top strip there. To repeat the eyelets, you're going to chain 2. That's going to count as your first stitch. Double crochet into that second stitch, chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet into that next stitch, chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet into the next stitch, and go ahead and do that all the way across again until your last stitch. Just like before, we are going to double crochet into that last stitch so it mirrors perfectly the other side. Then you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and single crochet all the way across, and do 4 rows of single crochet. Now that I've finished those 4 rows of single crochet, we have 2 mirroring sides here. So we're gonna go ahead and fold over our work and single crochet down the side. This will be our seam, and you just wanna go slowly matching stitch for stitch until you get to the very bottom there. So slowly match stitch for stitch. And when we get to that embellishment there, we are just going to single crochet over those extra double crochets we have on the side there. I've completed my single crochet seam down the side, so we're just going to cut and tie off, and then repeat that on the other side there. And we will weave in this end a little bit later. Alright, I have seamed both of those sides there, and we're just going to go ahead and turn our work inside out so that those seams are mostly hidden. Make sure to pop out those corners. And we can see our bag taking shape here. So with this yarn, you can see that I have 2 pretty contrasting sides, but I like that. For this next part, you are going to crochet into the second stitch from the seam on the right there, and you're gonna crochet into the next 3 stitches as well, so it'll be 4 total. Chain 1, turn your work. This is going to be the start of the handle. And you're just gonna keep going until you have the length that you're comfortable with. So for me, that is going to be about 100 rows. So I'll meet you back here when I have 100. So I now have 100 rows, and our next step is just gonna be to make sure that our handle is not twisted. Alright, and I have measured the handle, and it was at a comfortable length for my body. So the next step is going to be to go to the second stitch from the left side. So 1, 2, go ahead and insert your needle there, or your hook. And we are going to single crochet this onto this other side of our bag. And you want to make sure that the single crochet rib is on the inside, so make sure that you are crocheting on the inside of the bag. So once we have that, we are going to go ahead and cut and tie off. And again, we'll weave in that end later. And the last step is just to get those 2 tassels. So for the tassel, you're going to need something to wrap your yarn around. I'm actually going to be using this remote control, just the end of it here. And I'm going to wrap the yarn around the end of this 30 times. Alright, and then we're just going to go ahead and cut off our end there. Shimmy this to the end here. And you want to keep that loop structure. You're gonna cut off a spare end. You want it to be long enough so that you can sew it into your project later on. So we're just gonna take this through our little loop here and go ahead and do a double knot. And then you are going to keep those top ends separate and cut off at the bottom evenly. And then you're going to cut another spare piece of yarn to tie off the head of the tassel. Kind of comb it out, make sure it's all even. And you are going to tie this tightly around the head of your tassel. And this yarn is a little bit slippery, so just be patient with yourself. Tie that really tightly. And then one end is going to be kind of sticking up here. You're gonna go ahead and you'll just tuck that end in. And then keeping the top bits separately again, you're gonna comb out your tassel, kind of get any weird bumps out of it. And then you are going to just kind of comb through it to get the edges, and like you're giving a haircut, just trim off any uneven edges there. And you've got your tassel, and you can go ahead and attach it on either side, just sewing in. I went ahead and sewed our one tassel on there, and I made a second one, so I'll go ahead and show you how I just sewed it on really quickly. Take one end, thread your needle, and I am gonna sew it on kind of at just the base of the handle on this side here. Loop it through, and I'm actually just going to go ahead and double knot this. And then we will go ahead and re-thread this again. And I'm just gonna tuck these ends into the little collar of our tassel here. And then go ahead and comb out your tassel again, and you can just cut those ends off if they're significantly longer. And weave in your ends and you'll have a finished project. And I did go ahead and weave in my ends there and cut off a bit more of the fluff on these tassels. But this can be a wonderful present for young people in your life. This can be, you can make a cute little doll-sized one to go along with it if you were giving it to a kid. So lots of different things you can do with this simple pattern and this simple idea. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe for more content.